Alright guys, my name is Dan Alcorn.
I'm Greg Askey.
And we're here today to talk about a subject that is near and dear to our hearts, and that is the butt wink, otherwise known as pooping dog syndrome. So what we're going to do is I want to show you on Greg exactly what we're talking about to achieve this position and how we can try to avoid it. So butt winking occurs when you lose what we call pelvic neutral, the upright position of your pelvis. The reason why this is so important is because your pelvis is essentially like the foundation of your spine. If you think about the foundation of the house, if it's tilted in any direction, the rest of the house is going to follow, and you have a structurally unsound house. The same thing happens with the pelvis. If it tilts in either direction, your spine is going to follow, and you lose the entire integrity of the spinal system. So what we're looking for with any of our lifts is that Greg's pelvis leaves this upright position and either tucks all the way back, which is the butt wink or the pooping dog, or arches all the way forward. The much more common one is going to be this tucking back underneath. We're going to take a look at Greg doing the air squat, which is a common move that you'll see where people lose that pelvic neutral position and see that dumping, pooping dog, butt winking, whatever you want to call it. As Greg sits back down into the bottom of the squat, what I want you to look for is how his belt line starts to tilt backwards and how his back starts to round forward. If he starts to sink even further into it, it becomes even more pronounced. Now there's a lot of things that can contribute to this, definitely mobility deficits in the ankle, in the hips, in the spine. But what we want to focus on today is just a simple cue you can use to engage the muscles that are going to support your pelvis, and those are mostly your glute muscles. If you're engaging those properly, your pelvis is going to stay more upright and more stable as you go to the full depth of your squat. So we're going to use a cue that you commonly hear from your coaches, which is knees out. And what they mean by this is you're activating the glutes and the muscles that stabilize the pelvis to drive the legs out into a stable position. The common thing that we see is as you get to the bottom of your squat, the knees tend to collapse in and you're losing that stable pelvic position. So what we're going to use is some band around Greg's legs so that he has that constant cue to drive those knees out and keep the glute muscles engaged. So we have the band around Greg's knees. We're going to have him turn and face that way so you can see his belt line. And what Greg is going to do is he's going to try and keep constant tension on this band as he sits down into the full depth of the squat. And so for Greg, for right here, he's able to keep a neutral pelvis to just above parallel and come back up. Go into full depth for him, he's going to lose that pelvic position, so he's just going to drive down as far as he can, keeping the belt line upright. So do that a couple more times, and stop right there, and back up. What Greg's doing is he's keeping constant tension on the band, keeping these muscles that stabilize his pelvis engaged. The other thing that he's doing is he's maintaining his weight over the middle of his foot, that tripod, rather than sinking his weight too far back onto his heels or sinking his weight too far forward onto his toes. He's now completing a stable squat. We can throw 300 pounds on his back and he's going to be supported and he's not going to hurt himself. Alright, so this is just one cue that you can use to correct that posterior pelvic tilt, butt winking, pooping dog syndrome, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely some mobility contributions that you want to address. Go to your yoga classes. They're going to combine mobility with that core stability. Do your foam roll, your mobility straps before your workouts. But keep in mind that you want to keep those muscles engaged to drive the knees out and keep the pelvis upright.